Every year, hundreds of thousands of high-achieving young Africans apply to take part in the Mandela Washington Fellowship, also known as the Young African Leaders Initiative, YALI. While grassroots impact and servant leadership are prioritized above access to official authority and political power, the true strength of young African leaders is in the strength of numbers. Common amongst the young leaders is the recognition that their impact is commensurate with their ability to network with others and to work together to achieve common objectives. On this edition of the program, we take you to Nairobi, Kenya, where several distinguished young African leaders convened a regional summit. As we go into the regional conference proceedings, we are excited to share the insights, stories, and perspectives of these young African leaders as they sit down with us. Young African leaders arrive.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
The East African Regional Conference of Young African Leaders kicks off in Nairobi with a presentation by Nobel Peace Prize nominee Victor Ochen.
I'm indeed humbled and honored to be standing in front of the YALI members. I wish you could imagine how many times I applied and I was never taken up to now. I am not jealous, I am for you. Ladies and gentlemen, although you want to be a seed for change in the continent, know that it will be personal at some point. And when it gets personal, it gets more complicated. I experienced this myself. Having been born and raised in northern Uganda, without much opportunity, no education, struggling with my own security, my own safety, surviving on 1 meal a day for over 7 years, I was like many of my brothers and sisters I see who are malnourished in the conflict zone today. But there was one particular moment as a leader, from when I was 13 years, I chose to never fight, to never kill anybody. The desperations and sufferings of this world will never stop to come your ways. There was one fateful moment when my own brother was abducted by the Lord Resistance Army. And I missed that abduction by a few minutes. He was taken, and unfortunately has not come back up to now. He's one of the tens of thousands of northern Ugandan children who have taken, and they have never been accounted for. But to put that aside, as I was doing my work to work and empower young people, mobilize them to build peace, talk about love, solidarity, and all that, there was one particular moment when I was doing counseling in a community. I met a young man. And this young man told me a story, how he has lived in captivity and what he did in captivity. And he explained one particular moment when he was operating in my home area. This young man went on to tell me a story of how he conducted an abduction. He didn't know he was talking about my own brother, how he abducted my own brother. I said it on that sometimes it comes personal. You encounter your own, could be, should have been enemy. But what do you do? This is what you are going to face in the society. It will be personal at some point, but what do you do? You might be wondering, what did you do? I looked at the young man, told me the story. I was freaking in my heart. He said, my brother is missing. You explained to me how you have abducted my own brother. As he told the story, I couldn't finish the story. I said, can we cut this story? And they walked home. I drove home, reached home. I wanted to talk to my father. I just found no strength to tell him. I wanted to talk to my twin brother. No, I just went straight to the house. My body was shaking. Education. All I care is your heart. You have a good heart. You've seen too much. You can do so much for your fellow people. I employed him. I employed my brother's abductor. And not until I did that, I was not at peace with myself. I was not at peace with him. But only when I employed him that I found sense of harmony, sense of relaxation, sense of peace in my heart. So this is how I dealt with my personal encounters. Last week I was meeting with President Robert Mugabe. I was on a panel with President Robert Mugabe, and we were discussing, and he said, we need to give young people opportunity to lead. We need to give them opportunity to lead. But before we do that, they need better education. I said, yeah, Mr. President, thank you. But I told him, said, yes, education is necessary. But we have reached a point where we should educate, not only formally, but also informally. Can we educate by being role models, by being exemplary leaders, so that the young people may embrace? I don't want to raise another Mugabe. I want to raise a better Mugabe. That is one. And then, without relationship between me and him, we wouldn't have talked. It's only through relationship that you can tell truth to power, but tell it with love. Tell it with respect. That's where tolerance, understanding, harmony, common ground will be formed.